Welcome back to this episode of the Strong Kind Podcast. This episode is with Meredith Grossman. Meredith is a doctor of physical therapy. She's also somebody that's experienced burnout in healthcare in the past 4 to 5 years. And she has come back from that burnout with a lot of different perspectives. She is actively trying to help change the narrative around being a healthcare provider and providing quality care and being very patient and relationship centered. We had a really good discussion on burnout, physical therapy, health, complexity in the healthcare and human oriented caregiving world. It was a really great discussion. Really appreciated Meredith's take, and I hope you enjoy it as well. Thanks for being here. Check it out. Peace. Here we go. Meredith, I'm thanks for being on first and foremost. I'm a little disheveled. I just handed my baby off to my wife, and it's good, but I'm like, all right, this is a new routine for me. But your Instagram and your mission, I'm gonna call it your mission, has been really interesting to me because I'm a physical therapist, as you are as well, by background. And like how I know you is through a business development group called the Honey Badger Project, right? But your business, like what your goals were like relatively unique, as far as wanting to help people manage like the broken system from like inside, I guess is how I kind of think about it, right? Just tell me and the audience like what that stems from, and like what your overarching goals are.
Yeah. So I think the way that it really got started was I burned out,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
I was in a job for almost 2 years, my first job out of school, and just came out of it really feeling jaded and disillusioned. And part of my experience at that job was that they did sort of an engagement survey or like a burnout survey, and they found that their staff was really burnt out. And they, the managers and administration, there just was sort of this kind of throwing our hands up, like we don't really know what to do about this, and we're not going to do anything about it,
Yeah.
therefore. um and so we go to physical therapy school, and it's really a lot of evidence, a lot of emphasis on evidence-based practice and research. And as I was at that job, I was kind of like, I'm sure that there is research about this. I'm sure that that people are looking into the issue of burnout, and specifically healthcare burnout. And of course they are. The Surgeon General, I forget what year it was. It might have been 2020 or even the year before that, wrote an entire report on the issue of healthcare worker burnout. So there's a lot of research being done about it, and that information just wasn't being made available by my workplace. Which I think was from a lack of their own awareness and their own understanding. And so for me and for the people around me, I was like, there's just really a lack of understanding of what's going on for us. And so I wanted to kind of fill that gap in understanding and knowledge and support.
Mm-hmm. All right, so like take me back one step further. What made you go to physical therapy school?
Yeah, I think when I was younger, I kind of was into the idea of the medical healthcare field in general.
Mm-hmm.
I liked medical shows. I really liked House. I liked
Oh my
Grey's
God.
Anatomy,
Yes, I thought I was gonna be like Dr. House. I'm like, oh, this will be sweet. You like, and then you're like, then I worked in a hospital. I'm like, this is not like House at all.
This is not like House at all. Yeah, yeah. They did not apparently have a real doctor on staff on that show.
100%.
Uh,
Yeah.
but yeah, so I just kind of liked the representation I was seeing of the field. I liked the idea of helping people in my job. And I think like most PTs, when it came down to it, I was like, I don't want to do the whole medical school thing.
Yeah.
Kind of looked at the options. PT seemed like something that, I would have a lot of different options for. I wouldn't be sitting behind a desk all day. And, that combination of things. The availability of jobs was certainly attractive to me. Just like the
Yeah.
practical aspects of it.
Yeah, I always look at it like PTs are like the people person kind of the medical profession. Like, and they're like also kind of the, not to say risk averse, but they're like, hey, I don't really want to go to medical school, even though I probably could, like, type of thing. I almost went to medical school. Like I wanted to, I was a history major, and then I'm like, okay, what the heck am I going to do with this? So I started taking like pre-med requisites, kind of with the goal of maybe doing PT, maybe doing medicine. And then my dad had enough insight or foresight, probably foresight, to be like, go work in a hospital, like go and try to just get as much access to these environments as you can, to see if you enjoy it. And so I was a nursing tech for 3 years before PT school. And I think, man, it's kind of easy to have the rosy red glasses because, like, there's a hierarchy. And for a long time there, I was like, oh, these surgeons are cool. Like, this is sweet. Right. And then, like, you really start to shadow and you start to really see what it's like. And you're like, oh, man, and I was also on a neurosurgery floor, which is just hard. It's hard medicine to practice. There's a lot of burnout on neurosurgery floors from nurses and staff and stuff. So, but yeah, I'm with you. So, I guess like where I want to go or what I want to kind of ask next is like, what are, I hate to use the word root causes, but what are the causal factors? What are the things that contribute to this? It's all obviously multifactorial, as most complicated problems are. But like, for me, there's always kind of this, and you know better than me, but it's like, are our expectations for what these jobs should be too high? And then they're just not those expectations are not actually deliverable, or is it just really we have a lack of healthcare professionals, our infrastructure sucks, maybe that type of thing? Like, what do you see? What are the things that are the big contributors in your mind?
Yeah, I think my overall sense of my kind of takeaways from the research I've read, is that the primary issue is that the systems, the work, kind of setups that we have in place, specifically in healthcare, are not designed to support us as humans in the field, or really to support our patients as humans and to meet their human needs. And so because of that, there is in a healthcare environment, there is kind of this sense that our reason to be there is to help people and to get them better. But there is really not the support in place, number one, for us to be in a position ourselves to be able to be available to do that for other people, and then also not having the support in place for people to get healthy. I mean, I think you talk about this in your work as well, but our healthcare system is not designed for health. It's not, that's not really the incentive of
Yeah.
the way that we have set up our healthcare system. And as someone who is trying to that is our goal, there's a lot of tension around that. And so
Yeah.
I think that is really the root of the problem. I think there's another conversation about the fact that we do work in a very like work centric culture, and
Yeah.
that we do put a lot of our kind of like social weight into work and into like work related success. I think that certainly adds to the experience of burnout. But I don't necessarily think there is kind of a burnout theory that it is like a mismatch of expectations and reality. And I'm not sure that I fully buy into that narrative, because I think that, uh, you know, I honestly just don't. I guess in my experience, I don't see that playing out a lot. I don't see people having like uh, totally unrealistic expectations for their work or their workplace. And yeah, yeah.
I mean, I think it's almost, this is the hard part about like, you mentioned the tension of, so let's just like narrow it down to like PTs, but like honestly, nurses and doctors are burning out as well, right? Because overarchingly, you're right. It's not a human centric. It's really, we're trying to just make. I mean, we're trying to make widgets out of healthcare employers. Like we're focused on efficiency and like productivity, where like humans are extremely inefficient. Like you look at how much work I actually get done in a day. It's like, oh, 4 hours of just kind of like trying to get some work done. And then like 2 hours of like hustled work, right? And I'm like, there's aspects of that. Like when I really know what I'm setting down to do, it's pretty easy, right? Like I can get my work done. When you're working with a human being who has not experienced, who, let's say somebody has like back pain, right? They've struggled with it for years, and you're trying to help them understand that, like it's probably not that there's one specific structure that's wrong, right? Like that's, you have a disc that like that, it's not just the disc, right? It's probably kind of this overarching health ecosystem that is you, that we need to like make more resilient, more capable, build you up. Also, if your life is really hard right now, like like your pain's going to be ratcheted up. Like there's a lot of psychosocial and as well as the physical things. But like in a 45-minute session or in a 35 minutes or a 30-minute session, it's like, and you talk about this, I've been scrolling your page a little bit. It's like we're just trying to like give people the next steps, right? But we also like see this person suffering, and we want them to not be suffering anymore. And then so you're also like taking on their emotions, right? Which is something that humans are very good at doing, and also not knowing how to manage those emotions very well, right? There's like complicated aspects of that. So yeah, when you kind of, I don't say, you don't necessarily reject the expectations versus reality argument. I think that's just the most simple argument that people can make. Oh, well, everybody's expectation is that they're going to make $200,000 a year, and that it's going to be a great job, and they're only going to have to work 40 hours. It's like humans actually, like, if there's a lot of meaning in their work, like meaning is probably the thing that keeps people coming back the most, right? Money's nice, obviously free time and work life quote unquote balance is good. But yeah, like, so what are the things that, I love this quote right here, and I think a lot of people would get really pissed off by this. I'm not trying to work hard as a healthcare provider. I'm trying to do right by my patients. I'm trying to keep it simple. I'm trying to practice with humanity integrity. When you wrote that, like, what made you write that? And like, where did that come from?
Oh, that's a good question. It was fairly recent, so I should be able to pull this up. Um,
It's pretty high on your scroll, like a
yeah,
couple weeks back. I'm gonna dig
yeah,
deeper. I'm gonna dig deeper here, Mary.
yeah. Um, I I would say what it's bringing me to now, and this might get clearer as I start talking about it, but I mean, we live in a culture that really celebrates the idea of hard work. Like
Hmm.
real, like that is you'll it's just like that is a phrase that gets tossed around a lot. It's like assumed as a value of like working hard is a good thing. And for me, I work 40 hours a week, and so that is a lot of time. And within that, uh, I'm not trying to I'm not trying to do the most because it's not necessarily more helpful. In fact, not even not necessarily. It is not more helpful for me
Yeah.
to work as hard as I can. It's not more helpful for my patients. It's not more helpful for me. And I am the person who is working with my patients. So and the rest of that is like I'm trying to keep it simple because I genuinely believe that more in the context of healthcare, more complex, more intervention is not always better. More time with people is not always better. Um, and and fundamentally I'm trying to practice with humanity and integrity, which that in itself is hard. Like that is the hard part of the work that I'm trying to do
Yeah.
is trying to practice with integrity, which in our healthcare system, in kind of our society right now, feels like sometimes trying to fit a square peg into a round hole. Like that is work in and of itself. And so beyond that, I'm not trying to work extra on the weekends. I'm not trying to like uh do even with kind of this side project I have, like I'm not trying to do the most with that I because I'm a person with a limited capacity, as we all are, and I would rather focus on, like I said, practicing in a way that I believe in, and that has some level of reflection of my values.
I love it. I think like I always draw things to strength training because it's just the most apt analogy that I know. But it's like literally like you're not gonna get where you want to go in with your exercise or your training or whatever it is in 6 weeks anyway. And even in a week, like trying to just maximize what you're doing. Like there is a progression, right? And there's also a skill. There's skill stuff. But I mean, most people like if they just did something 3 times a week for a long time, honestly, kind of the rest of your life, it'd be really healthy and capable and happy, right? But there is this, I gotta like, it's so crazy how embedded in our culture it is. It's like, if I'm not doing it fast or if I'm not making this much progress in this amount of time, is it even worth doing? And it's like, I would just go back to like, if you could actually achieve the goals you have, but it took you 5 years, instead of like 6 months, like would you keep going? And like the answer should be yes, because 5 years is actually you've probably learned all the necessary and requisite things to like do that. And it's the same thing. And it's the unfortunate part about a lot of work, frankly, right now is that like people, you're just digging a giant hole that you can't recover from, and then you're physically, one of my the underlying core thing that I like care about. Probably need to talk about this more, but like stress is what kills us. Like like the psychosocial stress of trying to not having enough free time, not being able to actually kind of like I think it was your anniversary recently, so
Mhm.
congrats, right? But like just spending
Thank you.
time with your partner and your family, and like you also mentioned your community. Like that's something that like community is the number one social determinant of health. If you
Yeah.
feel like you are socially supported and in community with other people, you are drastically healthier, right? Like you could
Yeah.
exercise 6 days a week and be arguably like not healthy because you're mentally and emotionally not sustained in a way that can actually be beneficial for you, right? Um, so I love that, and I think like you're still working hard. That's the thing about humans and nuances. Like you're still working hard. You're just like you're
Yeah.
being very intelligent and tactical. You're not just trying to throw on stuff kind of as things become a show. It becomes a drama. It becomes house, right? We like, hey, in our field especially, it's this intellectual, I'm going to call it a jerk off session, intellectual jerk off session of like, who's got the newest exercise? Who's got the most? Who can do XYZ? Who can get the patient better the fastest? And it's like, well, maybe like honestly, a lot of stuff takes time anyway. So why don't we just give them the time and help them along that path and support them as best we can, right?
Right. Absolutely. Yeah. I would say I'm not I do work hard, and I don't do it because I value working hard.
Yeah.
I work hard because I value other things, and work serves those kind of ends. But I think that I don't like glorify the idea of hard work in my life.
So, all right, quick fix culture. This is another one that I just your content, I think like overarchingly like speaks to, and it kind of ties into what we just talked about. But so you're in like an acute, are you in acute rehab or are you in a hospital right now?
I am in outpatient rehab in a
Okay.
hospital.
Okay. Gotcha.
Yeah.
So was your first job, what was your first job in? I should have asked you that. I kind of was curious. Was it like outpatient ortho? Was it a hospital? Was it the same thing you're in now?
It was in an inpatient rehab
Okay.
facility.
Okay.
Um, yeah.
Yeah. So I mean in inpatient rehab facilities, um, yeah, like it can be very, very well, you talk about it too. Like we're not understaffed. We're pretty much chronically overbooked,
Yeah.
overutilized, I guess is the thing. And then we're expected to do it's always been silly, like, oh yeah, so me and my wife were traveling and we worked at an inpatient rehab, and it was like, our agreed hours were from 7 to 4, right? And documentation time was included. And and like we still in those first 2 weeks were like, well, like we're just trying to stand up for ourselves a little bit here by like, why are we doing our notes till 6 o'clock?
Yeah.
And to some extent it's getting better at notes, and some extent it's like, hey, give me one less patient so I can just do those other notes, right? But there's a utilization. And anyway, but let's go back to the quick fix when it comes to health. And what is so hard about like working with patients when there is this expectation of a quick fix? And then how does that make us feel as practitioners when like we probably can't give them that quick fix? Or even what does it make us compromise? Or um like to me, I always go to this. It's like there's nothing wrong with like feel good interventions, but
Hmm.
most people don't really like. Most people need to build up capacity and be able to see what they're capable of. Like seeing what you're capable of is a huge piece of rehab, right? And if we just like let people kind of, I don't know, I think we should let people dictate and make choices in their care, but like I can't let them dictate the treatment just because they don't want to work hard. Does that make sense? Am I
Sure.
saying something? What are your takes on those things?
Um, I okay, I'll start with that piece.
Yeah,
I think that to me, ethical care is very much a collaboration and very much a process of continuous informed consent.
yeah,
And so I do think I talk about this in my post too. Not every provider and patient is a good fit. Like I am under no illusion that that I have the answer if everybody could just get on board with my ideas. Like I'm genuinely not the best fit for everybody. And I think that part of navigating a patient relationship is just realizing if and when that's the case. I think obviously we want to be open. We want to offer what we can, and we want to open the door for collaboration and keep that door open as well. But sometimes it just doesn't always make sense, at least in that moment, right?
yeah,
Um, or sometimes it's a case of like, maybe right now you do just want some feel good interventions, and I can offer you that maybe for this amount of time, and then or like until you're at this point, and then maybe then you need to go a different way to get more like or you need a break before you can engage with a more active process. I think there's a lot of different ways to kind of approach those situations. I think the struggle with being in a quick fix culture is that number one, we as healthcare in general, like organizations, pharmaceuticals are marketing quick fixes all the time. And so when patients come into that facility, like there has been an expectation that we didn't create, but that culturally has been created, and also like our organizations are creating in their marketing and their advertising.
hmm
Um, and on top of that, we as providers also live in that culture and also have the tendency to get in our head that we're doing something wrong, that we're not good enough at what we do, or we don't know enough when our patients aren't getting better faster. I think we and them can get swept up in this idea that things should be moving faster, when in reality we don't have that much control over the body, and there are, as you said, a lot of factors that play into somebody's rehab process that are not even always on our radar, right? Like
yeah,
patients aren't showing us everything or telling us everything, which is fine. We do the same thing when we go to a healthcare provider, and that's part of kind of building the relationship with them and building trust with them, which also again takes a lot of time. I think people have the idea that building trust is like something that's done on the first visit, or that rapport is something that you just establish on the first day and then you have it. And it's not. It's a
Yeah.
continuous interaction, continuous process, that can really evolve over time.
Yeah, that's a really good reframe. I probably I wish I wish I would have like understood that like month one of being a new grad physical therapist, because like uh just realizing I took over a guy's, I was in an outpatient uh facility or outpatient clinic, and I took over a guy's caseload who was like very very manual, and like that wasn't me. Like
Mhm.
I would utilize manual therapy in conjunction with other stuff, but like his treatment style was that was the whole session. And it just there's also an expectation of like, oh, like I'm that's just I there is some of it is like if me as a practitioner is I my skills and my emphasis and honestly kind of my passion are oriented around doing it not that way, there's nothing wrong with that. You just can't force it on people who, and you have to establish a relationship and kind of keep nurturing that relationship and kind of start where people are. But like school makes us think that we need to have all the answers and that we're the expert, right? But we're not the expert of that person's life. We're not the expert of that person's even just understanding of what's going on. I do think in a lot of ways like we're trying to be good teachers, and the education level or where that person is at can be so variable, right? And so you got to always be adapting that. And informed consent continuously is yeah, like, hey, this is what my next step should be, or I think this is the good next step. How do you feel about that? If they say no, then you're like, okay, well, let's figure out another one together. And that was something that came pretty hard to me at the beginning. And probably still to this day, because human interaction is hard. Let's be honest. If communication and human interaction were easy, our job would be a lot easier to some extent. Maybe, who knows? But all right. So practically speaking, you know, what what are the these are systemic things that we're struggling with, that people are struggling with to some extent, but like individually, what are the actions or what are the mindsets or what are the things that people have to cultivate, to I'm just gonna say do things well. Like I don't necessarily want to use the word thrive all the time, but like so much. My biggest frustration, I was thinking about this last night, is like everything is so hyped. Everything is hyped, right? You're an Eagles football fan, right? They played the Commanders tonight. Like that's hype.
Yes.
That's like cool, right? But like so much of like our existence is this kind of bullshit hype that like I just kind of like I'm not that way. I'm not like a hype guy. I'm like a show up, do your best
Yeah.
and have fun. I believe those things are good. But like I just saw something that was like, what was it? It was something healthcare oriented. It was a freaking pharmaceutical commercial, which maybe we should talk about that. I don't know what your stances on pharmaceutical commercials are, but I freaking hate them. But it was like, get back to living freely with Trimvia or whatever. I'm like, this is gonna make somebody whoever has that condition feel like this thing can help them. I get why they're doing this. And it's just so much more complex than this, and this is just such bullshit. But anyway, I digress. We can get back to that. What are the things that you're trying to help people practice and um you know honestly like learn and implement, so that they can like show up, do a good job, go home, leave work at home maybe, and actually like do their best in the healthcare space.
Yeah. So, one of the ways that I kind of approach it and encourage people to look at it is through the lens of Maslow and Leader are burnout researchers from like the 80s, old research, but I find it still relevant and useful. And they kind of broke down burnout into 6 different areas of work life. And The first one is values, and I think that is a really important thing for people to bring some awareness to, is what is actually important to them and what they want to be portraying and representing in their work, realizing that that is perhaps going to put them in an anomaly position, because a lot of people are not focusing on that in healthcare.
No.
Like, a lot of people are truly just in survival mode
Yeah.
at work in healthcare. And I think it's to the point, and healthcare is to the point where our organizations have values that they espouse. And
Which is hype, right? That's kind of like my example of, oh, these are our values. Is anybody actually like implementing these values? Like, no, but we have them. Yeah, so
right.
I'm with you.
And just spending some time and thinking about what that really means to you, because values are
Hmm.
kind of, fluffy words, but really figuring out what that means for you and what that looks like for you.
Yeah,
If you value, whatever it is, if you value compassion, if you value honesty, if you value authenticity, like, what does that really look like for you, and specifically in the context of your work? I think that is a big one. Another area, one of the biggest areas in my mind that influences burnout, is control. So people do better when they have when they feel like they have some control over their quality of work life, the decisions that affect their work, etc. And I kind of expand that into getting really clear on the things that are within your control, within your work, and also getting clear on the things that you can't control and the things that you are often trying to control
yeah,
that you can't. And I think that piece is really key, is noticing the places where you are trying to control. And specifically for PTs, I think this is so important, because we are so often trying to control symptoms, and we
yeah,
do not have a lot of control over them. And that, I think, a lot of people and me included, have a hard time sitting with that, because that is sort of the basis of our schooling, is the idea that we can
yeah.
control symptoms.
It's funny that you say that because the amount of PTs that I've interacted that pretty much have like health anxiety, because it's just like thoughts. Like when I learned that, oh, my thoughts just kind of bubble up and that I'm not like in control of them, that like helped me immensely with like, because like, I mean, we have a newborn, and it was like 2 a.m. and I like was just cradling and he was crying. I'm like, God, I wish this baby would shut up. you know, which is horrible to say, but like, you know what? It was a thought that just bubbled up. And then I'm like,
Yeah.
oh yeah, like, dude, I love this baby. But
Yeah.
like in this moment, I'm like, this is damn, I should be asleep right now, right? And
Right.
honestly, so much like our body is a freaking organic, like complex system that's just kind of always on alert to like what's going on, right? And stuff just bubbles up. Like my feet hurt every day. You know what I've learned to like manage that? That it's okay that my feet hurt every day. Like they're just my feet. They're on the ground all the time. Like they're on hard surfaces. And
Right.
there are things that help, right? Like going for walks in grass, or like honestly taking a freaking break and not working or not walking 12,000 steps every day for a couple days, right?
Right.
But so many people immediately like, well, what's wrong with my feet? And it's like they're just giving you feedback. Like you're getting a little bit of feedback. You can't necessarily control that. What you can control, and I'm a big Viktor Frankl, Man's Search for Meaning. You can control your response, right? And your response, when you learn to manage your response, often is the difference between you living well and you freaking out continuously about stuff that you kind of can't control, right? So I'm with you. I think I had so many complexes when I got done with PT school, because I thought every little moan and groan had to be fixed, and like I was like doing all this stuff, and like what helped me the most was just like relaxing and breathing and being like, okay, you're okay, and just taking care of myself very generally, right?
Yeah. 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 I think it's the meaning that we assign to these things, and therefore what we do in response.
Yes.
Um, And I think alongside that, and especially in the pain science era, or are we post pain science era, wherever we
I
are.
think we're post it. We're in the we're in the I'm not just a pain science era, which I think there's utility in helping people understand the complexity of it. And but yeah, we're kind of in that, we're kind of almost coming back around to biomechanics again when you look at like the outpatient world, I guess, or the sports world, which is kind of what drives a lot of people into PT, is that's their conception of it.
Right, right. And I just think alongside of that, yeah, like you can't control people's beliefs. You cannot control their narratives. And I think that is also something that is hard to grasp as physical therapists, is that like is really that point of meeting people, uh genuinely meeting people where they're at. I think that is a phrase that is tossed around a lot and no one really knows what it means. And
Mm-hmm.
maybe that is another um point of advice or something that I would say to particularly a PT is like, figure out what that really means to you, what it
Yeah,
actually looks like to meet someone where they're at without abandoning where you're at, right?
yeah,
Because you think your value to them is in what you know and your experience. You're not just there to yes man them, or feed into their narratives, but I think it's figuring out what it actually means to meet someone without trying to control them, and without trying to, again, just kind of abandon ourselves or abandon our beliefs and our narratives as well.
yeah, yeah. The meeting people where they are, meeting someone else where they are at, is I think really huge. And I think you're right. You have to kind of clarify what that looks like for you, because all of us, everybody is going to have a different relationship.
Mhm.
That's the beauty of individuality as humans, and then creating relationships and forming bond. Like, no person sees me the exact same way, right?
Yeah.
Which is really wild. But like, nobody sees me the way that my wife sees me. Nobody sees me the way that my mom sees me. Nobody sees me the way that some of the people I work with sees me, right? Um, and then so much of it, and this is the hard part, like I'm very much I'm a like a cliche, like I'm a walking cliche. Like I love stoicism. I think, people like, and I think it's okay to be like, yeah, like that's kind of dumb in our area. And I'm like, you're probably right. But I also think there is utility in some of these kind of timeless pieces of wisdom or information that, if it's been passed along this long, there's probably some utility in it. Does it apply to everything? No, right? And if somebody can call me out on that bullshit, like, and that's fine. But like, you know, when I feel really, really fulfilled, and when I feel like people are getting the most out of me, this sounds really crazy, I'm doing the least amount of work. I think that's the funny thing. I always think about this from a managerial roles. The best managers, the best coaches create the environment for the players to play well, right?
Right.
And there is a role there, but like, you know, Phil Jackson wasn't on the court with Michael Jordan, right? Phil Jackson was like, the Zen master, orchestrating it and saying like, nobody needed to tell Michael Jordan how to play basketball after a certain point, but they did need to facilitate, like, basically probably his emotional side, right? And that's what a lot of my job is too. Like, I've had multiple people this week be like, oh, something's, like, what's wrong with XYZ? And I'm like, well, let's do this. And then let's just kind of see over the course of the week, right? Instead of really like getting freaked out about it, right? And like, that version of me, well, first and foremost, it's kind of like you mentioned, like the informed consent of, okay, this is what I think. What do
Hmm.
you think? And then these are our options. One of them is to just kind of take it a little, like, make a little modification and keep going. Or, we can kind of like really try to dig into this. What do you want to do? And that usually works a lot better than And sometimes people do just want me to like, Dave, just tell me what to do. And I'm like, that's fine too, right? And if
Yeah.
you say that explicitly, cool, because that is actually that can be a really great relationship. That's kind of where I'm at with coaches. I'm just like,
Mhm.
just tell me what to do because I know I need you, and that's fine.
Right.
A lot of people aren't there, right? Um, Last two big questions, and then I kind of want to talk football briefly.
Sure.
You're a Philadelphia sports fan in general, right? Are you like a Phillies fan?
I am. Since I moved to New Orleans, I follow the other teams a lot less. The one
Okay,
I'm really tuned into is the Eagles for
I
sure.
gotcha. How long have you been in New Orleans?
5 years.
Okay. Do you like it?
Yeah, I love it.
Are you like a Creole food fan? Is it Creole? What is the name of the food? Like, are you like a gumbo and that type of
Yeah, yeah,
stuff?
yeah, yeah, yeah. Like yeah, Creole, Cajun, cooking. Yeah, it's all excellent.
Did you move there solely for Mardi Gras?
No. I moved here actually for the job, my first job.
Okay.
I had was really had it in my mind that inpatient rehab was the setting for me, and this is where I found the job. So that's yeah, that's what brought me down. I stayed for Mardi Gras.
Yeah, there you go. All right. So we live in like a very like I don't know if it's as polarized as it feels like when you're on social media or when you're on like when you're watching the news. You know, I'm also I will openly admit this, like I live in Iowa, like there's not a ton of ethnic diversity around me. There's there is some, but like there's also, as far as what I would consider like diversity and polarity, like it doesn't seem like it can be in like larger areas, more urban environments, right?
Mhm.
But just the overarching like um let's just say climate that we kind of exist in. I don't know how much you use social media, but like aside from me posting and like maybe trying to have conversations with people, I just try to get off of it, or I make sure my feed is mostly memes, and then I don't really watch a ton of mainstream news. Uh, but like, how does like the overarching? Because we kind of talked about like maybe grassroots, maybe kind of not grassroots, but like the inside the healthcare system type of stuff. But like, what about the overarching ecosystem that contributes to our sense of maybe a lack of meaning, maybe fear oriented around the future, right? And then maybe burnout for people because it's a multifactorial problem, right? Like there is the
Mhm.
workplace and there's also the environment that we're in, that can contribute too. Are those things that you talk about or you see or you would help somebody navigate? What are your thoughts there?
Yeah, I think yeah, that's a big one for sure. It's a good question. Um, Looking at like once you get out of even the immediate workplace, and these kind of bigger forces at play, I think is what you're getting at there.
Yeah.
Um, I mean, we live in a capitalist world where what has happened is that wealth has become very concentrated. Material wealth has become very concentrated, and uh, and power has become very concentrated. And as a result of that, I think we are kind of constantly being sort of uh, used or trying to be used as consumers, as for our labor. There is kind of just this like perpetual extraction happening of our attention, of our energy, of our money, of our time. And again, we're humans, and all of those things are limited resources. They're restorable, but they are finite, they're limited. And I think a lot of us in that environment really struggle to just maintain a sense of peace, a sense of ease, because there is again just so many things preying on our fears, preying on our insecurities, which again are kind of targeted towards getting us to put our attention somewhere, put our money somewhere. And that is, it's certainly, I think, stronger on social media. On social media too, you have the yeah, like what's punchy, what's quick gets people's attention. Oftentimes what's punchy is not very nuanced.
Yeah.
And it is, again, people are good at what they do on social media, especially some accounts. Like the copywriting is good. It's written to get and keep your attention, and to kind of turn your yeah, to capture your whatever it is, your insecurity, your fear. And
Yeah.
that is, yeah, I don't think we are really, as humans, uh, it's very difficult to maintain a sense of well-being when we are, kind of constantly, or safety, really. I think that's a big thing. It's hard to have trust in people, including our patients, including our coworkers, including our bosses, when we, for good reason, have a lot of sources that are not trustworthy, like that we are interacting with all day.
Yeah. I mean, I think there, marketers figured this out a while ago, that if you just bombard people with messaging, it starts to seep in, right? We've gotten way more intricate, and actually that those messages are even like better at seeping in, because they typically prey on fear and insecurity, um other things like food is a very easy one. Like, that's a very obvious one. It's just like, if like they know what they're doing at 7 o'clock at night, when like that's when a bunch of food commercials come on. It's because, oh, I want, like, maybe I'm still hungry, right? And like, maybe I need, or maybe we haven't eaten yet and we were gonna make dinner, but now we're gonna like go get it. Like, that's just a super like simple and almost like non-harmful, kind of non-harmful example. But like, even this, our political state is always kind of a, one party is kind of preaching fear, and the other, and I'm not saying that it doesn't shift back and forth, because it's often fear of the other side, right? um
Mhm.
and then there's like also progress orientation, right? But like, it's you mentioned community a lot in your posts and in your content, and I think that's one of the things I just, I talked to multiple people who were frankly just really upset post election, and these are like, and you have a right to be like, that's part of this process, right? But and I'm not saying that this is going to solve all of the problem. It's not going to solve many of the problems, but going and being a part of your community is probably the best thing we can do as humans, is like, get to know your neighbors, like get to just actually interact with people in ways that are not you just arguing about politics, but actually like knowing and trusting other human beings. Because, like, have you ever read How to Change Your Mind by the guy who's like does the You Are Not So Smart podcast? David
I have
McCraney.
not. I have not.
It's incredible, but like, you know this, changing somebody's mind is incredibly difficult, right? And you're not going to do it by just arguing about what you think. You're not just going to do it by yelling at them. What
Mhm.
changes people's minds is actually coming in close with other people and sharing our common humanity, and like seeing that, oh, like that person is both different from me, but they're also not that different from me, right? And um that's one of the things that I think, I'm projecting my own thoughts, but like, I, I go back to when I was working at the hospital as a nursing assistant. The people who patients felt the closest with, like, did a really good job of coming in and connecting with the person, right? They looked at the person. I kind of always call it like the Patch Adams theory, right? Or the Patch Adams hypothesis. They came in and they acted as a human first, and then they started to deliver more of the medical message or anything like that. And that's one of those things that your healthcare work is always going to be hard, but like those human connections throughout a day can, I think, really sustain you, especially when like the system around you and maybe the people around you, I I worked alongside some awesome nurses, and I'm not saying that I was great, but like there was also just nurses who you could just tell that were burnt out and jaded, and it was also like, okay, what are the factors, right, that I can see? And there's a lot that I didn't know, but a lot of it was that they just kind of they stopped having like that humanness in their work, and so that's where I go with it too, because yeah, this overarching climax is crazy, but like the little stuff in front of you every day is really powerful and meaningful. So I don't know, that was a diatribe on what you said.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, community is, again, going back to those like areas of work life, community is one of them. I talk about it sometimes in my posts too. And I think again with that, it's a big question that I would encourage people, especially in this moment where things are very polarized,
Mhm.
and people are feeling like, I know I am feeling frankly, a lot less trusting of people and a lot more vigilant of people, especially as a queer person in the world. But I would encourage people to consider what that really means to them, what community, um, what a supportive community looks like and feels like, because I think sometimes I think we have an idea that community is really easy or
Mhm.
simple. And to your point, like communication and relationships are some of the hardest things about our work and also about our lives in general. And so especially navigating this moment right now is like thinking about what it looks like to be in community with people who are like you and who are not like you and who don't have the same values as you, or who um, are afraid of you,
Yeah.
um, and and that community can also look like boundaries. Community can look like accountability, and that's like there's it can also look like checking on your neighbor, and I think that's
Yeah.
also a really important part of it.
Yeah.
But I think that really starting to think about what we need out of community, what we want out of community, and what we want to bring to our community. And those are kind of two adjacent ideas. Because I do think there's a lot of like talk of community right now. And again, it's one of these things that I'm not sure we always really know what we mean and what we want that to look like, that is not just kind of this like mythical idea of everyone getting along, because
Yeah.
the reality is right now that, well, we're not getting along
Yeah.
and that it does not appear that anytime soon we are going to be getting along. And so therefore what do we how can we relate to people in a way that we are still maintaining their humanity in the meantime,
Yeah.
because it is the moment we lose touch with our humanity and with the humanity of the people around us is the moment when I think bad things start to happen.
Yeah, I'm 100% with you. That's something overarchingly scary for me, is like when you stop looking at people as humans is when we start to really have, conflict that almost cannot be resolved. And I think you're right when it comes to community does not mean a homogenous community where everybody's like you, right? Like that's kind of one of those big things. It's like we've kind of created so many silos, and it's just like people going and getting in groups of collective, like this is my tribe. I think it's good to have people that are like you and that you can feel comfortable and safe with too, but there's also an aspect of that where it's like you got to go out and be amongst people who are different than you, and learn from each other, and that's really hard. I'm not saying I'm being a giant hypocrite right that now, because I'm not actively going out and doing that like crazy, right? But I like it is something that I see, and as we continue, like we have a child now, like I want them to grow up seeing that other people, although people are different, like that there's still a lot of common humanity that we need to like cultivate and be okay with, right? So all right, that was heavy, but I'm gonna I'm gonna go. I want your pick for Super Bowl champion right now. And if you just go with the
Mm.
Eagles, that's fine, but you got to give me why then.
Oh, they've been on an upswing. If you had asked me 2 weeks ago, the Eagles would not have, I could not have in good faith said the
Seven
Eagles.
and two.
The
I mean
D
the Commanders tonight, right? That's yeah, tonight.
Tonight will be very telling. Our defense is looking very good. We haven't played a lot of great teams the last few weeks, so that's a caveat. I think, you know what? I'm gonna go with the Lions, and you're gonna hate that. I know you hate that,
I
but
like gosh, I can't think of their head coach right now.
Dan
I
Campbell.
love Dan Campbell. Um
Yeah,
and I love it's funny because we're like hard work, like he's kind of got that like Midwestern like hard work type of mentality, but he's also just I think he's a super good human like from like he knows what he's doing and he knows the type of he's like the perfect coach for Detroit. Like he came in and we're like, "Hey, like this is what we're going to do." Uh
right,
and I like
right.
Jared Goff. I think Jared, like this is the cool thing about sports, right? They're archetypal stories, right? Uh, Jared Goff was supposed to be the guy at Los Angeles for a long time. They trade him for Matthew Stafford. Matthew Stafford wins the Super Bowl. Jared Goff is like the prodigal son who, like, is he ever going to be very good? Like Jared Goff is freaking good, right? And
Yeah,
he's
he's
leading
having a year.
and he's leading the Lions. He's being a leader, which is kind of the other big thing. So I'm not. I love the Packers. I lucked into it, like not necessarily from like I don't I lucked into it because I started liking them in like the early 2000s. So Brett Favre was still the quarterback, and then it's like okay, then we get Aaron Rodgers, and then we
Yeah.
like we'll see where Jordan Love's career goes. But yeah, I've been pretty lucky. But I like football. I just enjoy. I don't watch a ton of it, but I do love football. And Saquon Barkley is incredible. So that
Yep.
play like from 2 weeks ago, everybody's like,
Oh yeah.
there was so many. So that was most of my feed that night was just like PTs coming on and be like, you don't get this way by doing XYZ or athletic trainers. And like, yeah, okay. So
Yeah. All the experts on backwards hurdling come out of the
100%.
woodwork.
Yeah. So
Who do you
Meredith,
got, Dave? Who do you got?
I honestly, I'm probably with you. The Lions they're
They're
like the
hot.
grittiest team. My sleeper from the NFC. Okay, so I hate to say this, but the Chiefs are probably going to be in the Super Bowl again.
Yeah.
Um, but my sleeper from the NFC is honestly going to be the 49ers if they get a bunch of people healthy.
Uh-huh.
Christian McCaffrey back. Brock Purdy went to Iowa State, and I went to Iowa State. I would love the Pack. I don't think the Packers are that good. So it's
No.
either the Lions or the 49ers. I think the 49ers are going to make a late season run here. So we'll
Yeah.
see. But yeah. And then
Love
so
it.
to actually win it, I'm probably gonna go the Chiefs again because they're freaking really good. So yeah, it's awesome.
Yeah. Yeah, I couldn't pick them.
I know.
I don't dislike them. It's just I'm sick of them.
I
Give
know
somebody
that's what
else a
happens,
run.
right? That's what happens. It's like you get really good, and not I love Andy Reid. That's probably my biggest thing is I love Andy Reid.
Yeah.
Because I mean he was Philly's coach for a long time, right?
Long time, long
Yeah.
time.
He
Yep.
didn't they didn't win the Super Bowl with him though, right?
No, they didn't.
Yeah.
I love him too, though. I'd love to
He's
see him succeed.
yeah, it's like he's one of those guys you'd love to see succeed. So, no, Meredith, this was really, I think I just honestly, I think your mission and like it's so easy, it's so cliche, but like that's what we do with stuff. But like your mission and your messaging is like really, really awesome. Um, I'm really glad to see like that, you're putting out, you're delivering these nuanced takes on like working in healthcare that a lot of people just aren't going to do, right? So I appreciate that so much. Where can people find you?
I'm on Instagram. Meredith Grossman PT is the best way to find me right now.
And then Healthcare Unraveled is your website,
It
correct?
is healthcareunraveled.com. It's been a little slow lately. Hopefully gonna pick it up a little bit soon. But either of those places.
This is the hard part about I will say this because I try to be very, I guess my messaging and how I try to market is probably not as good or as like problem oriented as it could be, right? And I think that's probably just a matter of, I just kind of don't believe in some of the ways that people market things. And I think it's with things that are actually super helpful. Like I'm sure you are super helpful, but you're not a quick fix, right? And you're
Yeah,
openly willing to acknowledge that, right?
for
Um,
sure.
and that's tricky. It's like I, I kind of look at what I do as like going to like therapy. Like people, it's like I'm finally there where I need to go talk to somebody. It's like you should go talk to somebody like now, right? So you should start to
Yeah.
engage in those things now. But when you do, and you get a lot of meaning and hopefully insight, good things happen. So
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I think we are adjacent in that way. I think your marketing is very much this is not a quick fix.
yeah, yeah. So no, I
This,
appreciate you a ton. Have a good day at work. Keep taking breaks. I think
yeah,
that's a huge. I will say that Meredith is very good at taking breaks and acknowledging the
yes.
power of that. So
Yeah.
yeah, thanks for being here. Appreciate it.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me on.
Peace.
All right. Bye-bye.